Clark, I wanted to ask something. I read, recently the story on the ND website about, you getting the job and how you found out and all that stuff. And you talked about having a feeling in your stomach that you're not good enough or you're not worthy and how that pushes you. I wonder how you benefit from that feeling and if that's always been there.
Yeah, I think that the message that I'm trying to convey, especially when I'm sharing that with players, is that we can never be content. And the minute you feel like that you've arrived, you're going to be humbled. That's that internal feeling for me. And, the ins and outs of how that plays out inside, and, that's really for me and them. But at the end of the day, it's more just that internal drive, knowing that your best days, your best accomplishments are out in front of you. And so kind of setting your sights each day to make sure you're not missing out on the little details that you need to perform to keep those long-term goals within reach. That's kind of the message.
What has this last stretch been like since, you got that job, going into your first signing day in that position? What's that mad scramble kind of been like for you?
I think the early signing period took a little bit of the pressure off, to be honest with you. I think that I felt kind of in a normal routine here. Solidifying some of the 2018 prospects and then shifting focus to 2019. And so this has been pretty normal for me. I think the next phase that we get into, where we dig into football, I think that'll be new. But certainly being more involved in decision making, building a staff and hiring a staff. Those have been new experiences that have been a lot of fun, to be honest with you, and I've enjoyed those tremendously. So.
Obviously, you're adding a lot of guys today and in the early sign period, but how important was it for this defense to get Tillery and Coney, get those kind of leaders back for next season?
Well, you can't put a value on it. I mean, they're, not only having the experience back, but they're both really special players and special people. And I think, honestly, for both those guys, stepping into enhanced leadership roles where they are going to be leaned upon, and their example is going to be the model. And I'm excited for them. I'm excited for them to have that burden of responsibility with their teammates' eyes on them. And I think both those guys, when I see them now in the weight room or in the hallway, they both have this look in their eye where they're anxious to go to work every day. And so obviously it's a huge blessing for me. I think it's an absolute testament to Coach Kelly and the program he's built. This has become standard now, returning experienced players that have NFL careers in front of them, and I think they believe in what he's doing and his vision for the program, and they know that an extra year in the system, in his system, is going to pay dividends for them long term. And so I think that's a special aspect to the Notre Dame football program.
And then just lastly for me, where do you think you feel the biggest needs as far as the defensive side in this class?
In this recruiting class?
Yeah, where do you think we really helped ourselves in this position or this area?
Well, I think we returning an experienced roster, wanting to solidify depth and secure players that were going to be able to come in and compete and push that middle part of your roster forward. Competition, you hear a lot of promises made on playing time, and the only promise we make is the chance to compete, because we know at the end of the day, each player needs to be driven. And when you bring talented players, an influx of talented players in, I know for me, and I can speak personally as a scrub fullback from Vandy. Every year they brought a fullback in, I was always helpful and cordial, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, buddy, you're not taking my job, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to maintain that second or third team fullback role. Obviously, we added a ton of skill and we added length, and those things are always good. I think we added system fits too. That's another important part. This is a unique system of defense that requires specific skill sets, and I thought the ability to dig in for a year and to address that aspect was also helpful.
Coach, you're going to continue to coach linebackers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When Drew Tranquill made his decision to return, what role did you play in counseling him, advising him, that sort of thing?
I think I would be a marginal part of that. I think that he sees a place where he's going to be developed. I think he experienced development over the course of this past year, and I think he was attracted to that. I know he's going to function in a positive work environment. I know that's important to him. But at the end of the day, these are decisions that the young men make with their families and with our head coach and with counsel in that respect. I'm biased in those, and you try the best you can as a coach to step back and say, hey, look, I want you back. And so everything that I'm going to say to you is going to be tinted that way. I think that honesty up front is important. But then you help them kind of say, here's some positives, here's some negatives. And then you let them make the decision. And truthfully, you just support them along the way. And had he chosen to pursue an NFL career, I'd be his biggest fan. Now that he's back, I can't wait to dig in with him and make him 1 year better.
What is his next step? What are the areas that maybe 1 or 2 areas you want to focus with him? Like, you've got to get better at this.
That's a good question. I think that he has 1 year experience now playing at the second level, and so there's probably a broad spectrum of things that he's going to enhance in little ways. For Drew, I think he's an engineer. I know he's an engineer by trade. So, getting him to release some of the rule-driven thought process and getting to think big picture and allowing him to harness that athleticism and that skill and go play. I think that's something we'll work on this time of year, and then from there, it's still building upon a comfort level of playing at the line of scrimmage, of the offensive line movement triggering my first movement and that twitch required to play gaps and all that kind of stuff. Those are things that we're going to work on too, and maybe the third piece being just the mechanics of being a good blitzer, understanding, my responsibility within a blitz track, executing that blitz track, and then winning in a pass rush scenario. I think that's going to be another place where he can build into a better player. He's
so bright and so intelligent. Does he overanalyze things and need to play more instinctively? Is that fair to say?
I think he's an analytical mind, and I think that I wouldn't necessarily say that he I don't think that you watch him play this year and say, well, that guy was getting in his own way. He cut loose. But I think what stepping back, and especially this off-season time that we can spend together to talk broader concept, it just will give him a better frame of reference for this is my responsibility, this is why. And just kind of free him up to play. And again, we're looking at small changes, right? 1 degree changes in his game. Obviously, just incredibly pleased with the progress that he made through the course of the year.
And lastly, I know he graduated in December. Do you know academically what he's going to do for the rest of his career? Is he working on an MBA, or do you know specifically what he's planning on doing?
He's going to be in graduate level courses. I would be out of line to comment specifically on what that is.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Coach, when Mike Elko left for Texas A&M, was it in the back of your mind, hey, here's my opportunity? Did you feel like you were the heir or next in line to carry on what Mike implemented last week, because you have been so involved through the process with him?
I think that the truth be told, in the back of my mind, before Mike left, I think that I knew at some point I was going to have to leave to assume the responsibility elsewhere. And, when you're at a place like Notre Dame, that allows you to be very selective. And personally, the affinity I have for this place, that was kind of a tough thing to wrap my mind around. When Mike's situation came to pass and he accepted that position, I absolutely had my sights set on this opportunity, and I was totally wrapped up in getting the chance to do this. I knew that Coach Kelly and Jack Swarbrick had to do what's best for this program. And there are a lot of talented people out there. I did know that continuity could be an advantage, and I feel 100% prepared to assume that role. I'm going to have to learn. Like, I'm going to have to grow in this, and that's okay too, you know, but I've trained myself as a coach, as a communicator, as a teacher. And so what I'm going to look to do is kind of lean on those skills, and then you know, approach my job every day with eyes open, ears open, and gathering opinion and perspective from the other staff members, you know, and I think that's how you grow in this. But to answer your question, when Mike decided to go, absolutely was excited and hopeful and ready, and to be able to stay at Notre Dame to me is it's a dream for me, you know, so I'm excited.
You noted the continuity aspect as being perhaps an advantage for you. Do you see implementing some of your own personality, tweaking some things, or early on just kind of going with what was successful last year and then trying to build on it?
The goal would be to proceed as though nothing changed. What that means is we'll spend the next, you know, month digging through last year's film, and defense evolves naturally. So you address problems maybe that came up last year, things you need to fix. No different than if there had been no staff change. From a systematic standpoint, there's a reason that I came to Notre Dame in the first place, and that was to coach in the system. I believe in what we do. I've been a part of it for a number of years, and this is the defense I want to play. And so as things evolve naturally and you know, that process takes hold, things may tweak, but it won't be anything drastic. From a personality standpoint, you know, I can only be one person, and so naturally my time with the entire unit should in some way be reflected in the manner we play, you know, and you want your team, your unit, your defense to take on your personality in subtle ways. And so I hope that if I'm communicating effectively that, you know, there will be small changes, but I don't know that it'll necessarily be noticeable other than, you know, for the people in the hallways here.
Because you lost Niles and Greer, are you looking at potentially shifting people around, like Tevon to the Mike position and then maybe Drew to the Buck position, or is that still under evaluation?
It's under evaluation. You know, Tavon played Mike for us last year, and so you know, I think he has that flexibility and has displayed that flexibility. My responsibility as linebacker coach is to put the best combination of people on the field, and so I think everyone can see that Drew Tranquil has a skill set, a talent base that can play multiple spots. And, you know, I think through the course of the winter and spring, we'll take a look at different options, and by the time we wrap up spring, hopefully have a great feel for what the depth chart's going to look like heading into the fall.
And just, you have 4 guys coming in now. Would you be able to just comment on their skill sets and where you see them fitting into the schemes that you want to implement?
So starting with Shane Simon, who's an incredible athlete and a better person, honestly. You know, Shane is a safety in high school that has played some field overhang that I think is a natural fit at the rover position. So he'll get his first reps there. And then, you know, we see how he grows and develops from that point. But I think that's a great fit for him. The other 3 guys, Ovi, you know, really I could see playing either outside position. You know, he has been a run and hit player in high school. His best defense has been played kind of alley to alley on the move. And so, you know, I've got to help him with the mechanics of playing in the box every down and how you attack gaps, but I know that he can run and hit. And so I think either the Buck and Rover position, both of those could enhance that skill set. And then with Bo and Jack, I mean, those guys are natural interior, inside linebackers that, you know, at a certain point, both positions are interchangeable, and you're just going to kind of see, hey, what can they handle here early, and where are the needs in the depth chart as we get through spring, and kind of plug them in accordingly. Yep.
There we go. How did you sort of navigate managing the relationships and the communication with guys that signed in December under the assumption that Mike Elko would be their defensive coordinator? I'm sure you obviously had relationships with a lot of them, but when that changes and they've already signed, how did you sort of approach that with your communication and managing of those guys?
Well, because there were other pieces remaining. You know, the guys that I didn't necessarily have close relationships with, you know, Todd Light would, or Mike Elston would, you know, and then, you know, Terry Joseph knew some of them too, as it turns out, you know, by chance. Yeah, I think more than anything, you know, those young men committed and signed to a defensive philosophy and to play a position that they could see on film and that they knew what to expect. And so I think in a lot of ways for them, the continuity was the main piece. You know, I would imagine it would be a little more difficult for someone coming from outside to move in seamlessly that way. But we didn't, you know, from a communication standpoint, only got good reports, good interactions, positive feedback on the promotion, and so never really hit any hiccups that way.
And then Coach Kelly mentioned it. You mentioned earlier that you like your unit to reflect your personality a little bit. How would you say your personality differs or is similar to Coach Elko?
Oh, well, he's from Jersey. I'm from Nashville, so I think there's a lot of no, I'm just kidding. Look, Coach Elko and I are schematically aligned. We're philosophically aligned. We're really close friends. I mean, you know, so that's where I say I don't know that that you're going to see that big of a difference. You know, at the end of the day, we both look to come in and motivate. We both look to come in and inspire action. We both look to come in and hold players accountable and model the way for them. And so, you know, as people differ, we differ. And so my approach to doing that may be subtly different from his. You know, my relationship with a defensive lineman, again, may be subtly different than his. And so that'll kind of be reflected in small reactions, but nothing too drastic.
Clark, back over here. I'm sure when you got the promotion, you had a million people reaching out to you, you know, congratulating you. I'm wondering if was there a piece of advice or an interaction or anything that stood out that was most memorable? You know,
gosh, the power of having your network kind of just prop you up was just really a special experience. To share in this moment with so many people that have, you know, over the years. Look, I've been on the couch at times too in the winter, you know, and that's not a great feeling. But you have people in your network, in your family, and your friends, your coaches, coaching cohorts that kind of keep you charging through those times and give you opportunities. And you know, that was really neat. I think the most meaningful advice interactions I had were with Brian Kelly and Jack Swarbrick. You know, I mean, their support, their confidence, their decisiveness, you know, the fact that they observed me for a year and said, this is the guy we want, you know, was deeply impactful. And so now it's my responsibility to make them right and to make good on this opportunity, and I don't take that lightly. So that would be how I'd answer that. And then you've had, you know, a lot of jobs in the last, 11, 12 years, however long it's been. And you said, like you said, you've been on some couches in the winters and stuff like that. Were you always confident that this day would come, that this job would come where you are right now? You know, confident in my ability to do this. There's you know, your skill set, and then there's the opportunity, and you never know when those two things will collide, I guess. And so, yeah, I'm not going to tell you that there weren't moments where I had doubts or questions. But, you know, what do? It's the same thing you tell the players to do. You just wake up the next day and take the next step, and you keep swinging at it, and good things usually happen. And so the one thing that has never changed for me, whether it's coaching freshman running backs at Harvard Westlake High School and coordinating the defense there in 2005, or, you know, being a GA at UCLA, you know, or being at South Dakota State or Bowling Green or Wake Forest or Syracuse, football is a fun game to be involved with. It's fun to coach. It's fun to interact with kids. It's fun to see a tangible difference that you can make. Team building is thrilling, you know, and so no matter whether this opportunity came at this level, you know, so long as I was staying involved and staying active and having the opportunity to create relationships and build a unit, and, you know, that was kind of the main purpose.